All right, now that we've talked about how the water gets into the root, we got to figure out how the tree gets the water from the root up to the leaves, right? Because if you think about it, you know, in a little tulip flower or daffodil or something like that, it's not that big of a deal. It's only the plant's only about a foot, maybe 2 feet high. It's not so bad. You start talking about like full-grown oak and maple trees, and then there are even some other like a Douglas fir where you get up to trees that are like up to 100 meters high. That's a long way for water to flow against gravity, right? Like we can't even get water to the first floor of our house without using a pump. So how is the tree gets the water up there? Because trees definitely don't have quote unquote mechanical pumps in them, right? So
natural pumps.
So they do have a couple of ways we think they get the water up the tree. Nothing has been scientifically proven for sure. In all likelihood, it's probably a combination of the three methods we're going to talk about.
What if a tree had its own gravity?
I don't think that's how it works.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is getting water up the tree. Okay. And so there's kind of three main ways that we think this happens. So the first main way is something called root pressure. So basically, the idea behind root pressure is that as water comes into the rootlets and gets pumped and as the water comes into the rootlet, it kind of pushes the water that's already there up the stem a little bit. Okay, so that's the thought, the theory behind root pressure.
So all that's really happening here is
So it's kind of like thinking about just adding Lego blocks to a tower from the bottom, and it just kind of pushes the block in front of it up higher and higher and higher. So that's the thought behind root pressure. The second way that scientists think water kind of moves against gravity and up the tree is through something called capillarity, and we met this earlier in the water unit as well. So this is when liquids basically they kind of stick to the side of small tubes, right? So if you you ever look in your straw when you've got liquid in it, you kind of see the straw edges like this, and then you see kind of a little thing that forms like that in it. That's water. This here is water sticking to the side of a small thing. That's capillarity. So the thought is that some of the water, once it gets out through the root and it starts to get into the stem, and you're passing up the xylem. Remember, the xylem is really small tubes. So some of this capillarity action is going to happen, and it kind of sticks to the sides and gets drawn up a little bit higher. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure.
Do it again. It makes it water's quick.
Put that
Are we drawing our picture?
I would. That's awesome. I'm sure it is. And then the last way that water moves up through the tree is through something called transpiration. Okay, so the way transpiration works is, remember how we talked about how water was polar and it stuck to itself? Like the positive end of one water molecule is attracted to the negative end of another one. So it kind of sticks together. We talked about that stickiness in terms of the water unit as well. Well, so what happens in the leaves of a tree is some of the water needs to get up to the leaves so that the leaf can use the water molecule to make sugar through photosynthesis. So it gets drawn. So when it gets to the leaf, it kind of pulls some more water up with it. It's kind of like sucking through a straw, right? Like if I'm drinking my Coca-Cola that I got at Harvey's with my hamburger, when I bring the liquid up through the straw, that's essentially, I'm performing the same thing as transpiration. I'm sucking it up and it's pulling itself through. Okay, so So as the water gets used up, it pulls more into the leaf, and that's kind of the third final way that they think water gets all the way to the top of the really tall trees. So like I mentioned before at the start, it's probably a combination of all three of those things. It's not going to be one or the other. They're probably all working together to get the water up to the tree.